What's up, everyone? Um, Today I wanted to reflect a little bit on the beauty, like the most beautiful parts of the gospel that I know of. Like the parts that I think are like amazingly beautiful. Like how lucky we are to live in a world in this type of system, in God's world. What a beautiful world it is. And for me, the most beautiful part is the part of that we're never left. Like, God never leaves us. And I know it sounds cliche and everything, but it truly is. Like, when you start to get deeper and deeper into it, you really see how God sustains us, like, spiritually, even when we move into sin a lot. That's when God even sustains you even more, and doesn't allow you, like, you can't destroy yourself. You can destroy yourself physically, like you can commit suicide, right? But you can't destroy yourself, your spirit. You can't destroy your soul. Like, your souls are eternal. Like, your consciousness is eternal. And God will always, like, you'll always be a part of this whole that they were a part of this connection that we share with everything. Like, that's just, you'll always be a part of that. So despite our efforts to break free from that, through sin and through just that rebellious nature that we have within ourselves, which is innate to free will as well, to just break free from the whole. But as we fall into sin, and as we harm others, and as we harm this network around us, because that's the main criteria for sin, right? Is harming others. So as we do harm to others, as we move into sin, God's always there to sustain you. And that's one of the most beautiful things, is like the unconditional love of God. It's like the mercy of God is just amazing to me as I learned those things, as I learned about the mercy of God and how all of us are His children, and there's not one. God is the good shepherd, and God is never going to leave one of His sheep. It's like the lost sheep parable, right? God's always going to go out and look for that lost sheep, and that's true for everyone. And that is, we are all one. We all share that unity, and that to me is so remarkable. Like how God protects sinners from destroying themselves. Because technically, when you do harm to others, you do harm to yourself. That's just the law of nature, like that reflectivity. Like, what you do to others, you do to yourself. What you do to yourself, you do to others. But as you do harm to others, God protects you, and you go into, like, with levels of consciousness. That's how it's done. And that's just a system that was set up that way. So as you sin, you're protected from yourself, and you lose consciousness at the same time. And that to me is like, it's like a blanket. It's like a blanket from God. It's kind of like a big hug, like we love you, despite what you're doing, we still love you. Now, it also makes you less powerful, right? So, as you lose consciousness, you lose power as well in the material world and in the spiritual world. But at the same time, it protects you. And that's the mercy of God. That's the all-encompassing mercy, the eternal and unconditional mercy and love of God. And to understand that is just amazing. Like when you can feel that there's an unconditional being that lives in everything, that this intelligence, this creator that's in everything, this energy that's everywhere, this intelligence that's alive, that is far beyond anything we know and we can conceive of. And how that intelligence is there unconditionally for you. Like no matter what you do, it doesn't matter. No matter what you do, you'll always be loved. And to come to that realization, like that no matter what you do, no matter what you are, no matter what you think, you'll always be loved. That is just a great realization, like to yourself personally, and it's freedom. Like you do have complete freedom. There is no hell. I mean, there is hell. Sin is hell, but you're protected from destruction. You're protected from ultimate destruction. Now, if you go down the wrong path, you're going to suffer. You're going to experience suffering, but you're going to fall more and more into subconsciousness, and suffering's going to become something that you can't understand. You're going to be suffering and you don't know why, because you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, and it just goes like that. You become more and more ignorant, and so it's like a subconscious suffering, and that's basically because you couldn't be able to bear it consciously. You wouldn't be able to do it. You wouldn't be able to commit that level of sin on a conscious level, because it wouldn't make any sense. Like your consciousness wouldn't allow you to do it, because it would just be something like so stupid to do that you would just, it doesn't make sense to do. But in unconsciousness, you can do it because you're not awake. You're like sleeping. And so, anyway, but knowing that unconditionality of God is just amazing. Like it's the most beautiful thing that you can realize as a person, and it liberates you from judging yourself, which kind of liberates you in a sense. And so that's the beauty of the gospel of nature, of where we live. Like this place is amazing, and it's hard for us to see that because we don't live. We're not taught God's rules and God's ways. We're not taught that yet. We will be taught that, as we get closer and closer. But now we're living in kind of a lower, the culture is still in that survival mindset. And so that's like the beauty of the gospel. And then we move obviously into where we are now, like where we are as a culture and as a species. And so I wanted to talk also about the institution and the individual and the difference between the two. And I think I already spoke on this before, but just to reiterate, the individual is part of this whole network, right? Is part of God. It's part of this whole body of God, which is part of everything, this energy, right? And so it has a connection with everything, and fulfillment comes with connecting with others and doing good to others, and this is where fulfillment comes in serving, in connecting. And so the institution is created with the purpose of growth and so the institution isn't part of there's no innate nature of an institution. It's just an artificial entity that's created. And it doesn't have these innate feelings or these like an individual does. And so the institution is created for the sole purpose of growth, of survival and growth, of viability, to maintain its viability. And the individual doesn't need to do that. I mean, because the individual can't be destroyed. It's always viable. The individual spirit is always viable. It can't be destroyed. But the institution can be destroyed. And so the institution is always seeking survival. And when you always seek survival, you always seek growth. And it's never enough. Like, no matter how much you grow and grow and grow, you're always in survival mode. Because it's self-serving. The institution is just self-serving. And the individual is quite the opposite. It's not self-serving, it's serving of others. That's the innate nature of it. And so the institution is always in that survival mode. And no matter how much it grows, and even the more it grows, the more it grows, the more it grows, the more it feels threatened. Its survival feels threatened, and then the more it has to grow. It's like countries. The more they grow, the bigger the empire gets, the more it feels threatened, both internally and externally. And so it clamps down, it tries to gain more and more control, well, internally and externally, over everything, right? And eventually it collapses because it's not part of God. It's not part of this network of consciousness that we've been talking about. It's just an artificial entity. And so we have to, and we've adopted a lot of these same, and who has created institutions in the first place? We have, right? And we've created them that way because we have adopted that mindset. The mindset of survival, the mindset of growth, of self-service, and as a culture. And so we have to move away from that towards the laws of God, and not towards these laws of man, which are subservient towards these institutions. Like, institutions reign now. Institutions reign supreme in this age. The institutions have a lot of power and a lot of control over everything. So once you understand the nature of the institution and its need for growth, control, and the more you need to grow, you need to survive, the more security you need, right? We see that always in big empires, the need for security. The citizens feel that. They feel threatened when there's not really a threat. But then eventually there is a threat because there's so much just internal pressure. It's all this control exerted upon the people that eventually just collapses because it's not sustainable. So we're in kind of that non-sustainable type world. Our institutions, especially our government institutions, corporations, they're in that mode of unsustainable growth. But human beings are not. I mean, we create and we sustain the institutions, but as we change and we evolve and we change our core belief systems, institutions will start becoming more and more decentralized. Because there's no need for centralization. And so there'll be more and more decentralization, more and more cooperation, less competition, less of that need for survival. And so anyway, I just wanted to share with you guys that my main point of tonight was to share that beauty of the gospel, like the beauty of that mercy, the beauty of that unconditionality that we all have been given, like that gift that we've been given. No matter, just always remember, no matter what you do, no matter what you think, no matter what, anything, like there's always something sustaining you, like that the whole spirit of this whole field of consciousness is supporting you, even though you can't sense it, but it's there. And that's all I have to leave with you tonight. And may we live in unity and in compassion and in peace and in freedom. Good night, y'all.